The one that receives the most votes at the primary election, August 12th, will go on to be the DFL candidate in the general election, November 4th. Minnesota House District 44B includes Woodland, the southwest corner of Plymouth, and then extends south to Minnetonka. A House member receives a salary of $31,140.90 with a per diem of up to $96 a day for travel and living expenses. Tonight, our moderator is Martha Mix, a member of the Golden Valley League of Women Voters. Marty?
Well, thank you. I should turn this on. Just a reminder to the candidates, too, before you speak, make sure you turn on that little red button. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Wayzata Plymouth area. And on behalf of the League of League members, I wish to welcome you all here in the audience and those viewing at home, and of course, thank you to the candidates for being here. The purpose of this evening's forum is to provide you the opportunity to hear the candidates discuss face-to-face the issues that are important to you. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters, and the sponsorship of the debate is not an endorsement of any candidate or any political party. The League of Women Voters does not support or can oppose any candidate or political parties, and all candidates have been invited. The rules for this evening's forum are as follows. Each candidate will be allowed an opening statement that is 2 minutes and a closing statement with a maximum of 2 minutes as well to state his or her experience, platform, and objectives. A 15-second warning will be given before the total time has elapsed. Can all the candidates see the timekeeper there? Okay. And when you see the stop sign, please finish your sentence quickly, or I will interrupt you. Opening statements are given in alphabetical order, and the questions shall be answered in a rotating order. And the answers will be confined to 1 minute unless designated by me if it's a really complex question. No reference of a personal nature will be tolerated. A person's public record may be examined, but not their character. These forums are made available to encourage the voting public to focus on the issues. We ask that there be no demonstrations, applause, or booing of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that all candidates be allowed their full time to get their point across. We'll thank all the candidates with applause and a big applause at the very end of the evening. I would like to now introduce our candidates here for the Minnesota House of Representatives, 44B DFL primary candidates, and to my left they are John Applebaum, John Tollefson, and Tony Wagner. And we'll begin tonight's forum by calling on John Applebaum to give his opening statement.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm John Applebaum, and I wanted to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this wonderful event. And it really means a lot to me that so many folks have gathered here to learn more about the candidates in this exciting race and for giving me the opportunity to make my agenda clear. First, a little background on me. I was born in this district, which is now House District 44B. Went to Hopkins Public Schools from Tanglin Elementary, Hopkins North Junior High, Hopkins High School. If there was a Hopkins University, I probably would have gone there too, but instead went to Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, then went to the University of Minnesota Law School where I graduated with my JD in 2010. I'm now a practicing lawyer. I own my own small business. I'm a tireless DFL activist, and most importantly, I am an engaged man, and my beautiful fiance has her summer haircut in the first row. You know, I wanted to enter public service my entire life and am honored and outrageously excited for the opportunity to represent my hometown district at the legislature. I am proud to be from Minnetonka, Minnesota. I'm proud to be a Minnesotan, and I'm running for state representative because I want to make Minnesota the best state in the country, and I believe that starts with improving our state government. Now, to me, that begins with improving upon 3 issues in particular. Number 1, having the best education system in the country. 2, ensuring that our government supports workers, small businesses, entrepreneurs, and encourages economic growth. And 3, provides for a robust transportation system that is both efficient, and accessible. I look forward to speaking with you about these issues, and I look forward to earning your support August 12th.
Thank you very much. John Tollefson, your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, make sure.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this forum. The League of Women Voters is such an important organization, and as you mentioned, throughout its history of serving in a nonpartisan role to educate voters and to provide information. So I knew that we could count on the League to host a forum like this one before we did, so that's great. My name is John Tollefson, and I'm running to advance education, transportation, and high-tech jobs. That's the field I'm in now. I've been with the Minnesota High Tech Association, where we work on advancing economic development in the science and technology realm with regard to education technology, healthcare technology, agricultural, and so on. Minnesota has a strong base in science and technology, and we're in the top 10 right now, but by moving above that up into the top 5, we can really attract a lot more investment dollars into the state, and that's how I think we can grow the economy. I'm also running to work on education, and with a focus on early childhood education. And then with transportation, building a full transportation system that reduces our reliance on cars and helps us get around more easily, gives us back some of the green space, and addresses carbon emissions that are affecting climate change. So education, transportation, and high-tech jobs. These are very passionate issues for me, and this is what I want to work on in the legislature. Now, before serving with the Minnesota High Tech Association, I was a U.S. diplomat, serving in Nigeria, Mexico, and Washington, D.C. I studied international affairs, where I got my bachelor's and master's degrees in international policy and economics at George Washington University, and moved into the Foreign Service as a Foreign Service officer, serving under first President Bush and then President Obama and Secretary Clinton, which was an extraordinary experience. But I'm from here in Minnetonka, in this community, went to Hopkins schools, and I live here now and want to continue that service. It would be an honor to represent you, and I sure hope I earn your support.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from Tony Wagner. Your opening statement, please.
Thank you, Martha, and a pleasure to be here tonight. And again, I also want to thank the League of Women Voters. A forum like this is critical to educate all of those voters out there for the primary, which we hope there are some, because it is August as we think about this. But again, my name is Tony Wagner. I've been a resident with my wife April and our 2 young children of Minnetonka for the past 17 years. And during that time, I've had the pleasure to both represent the city of Minnetonka as a city councilman and work in the district as a senior executive at Carlson Wagen Lee Travel. And the reason that I'm here tonight and standing on this podium, or sitting on this podium, I should say, is due to the fact that really public service has been ingrained in my DNA since I grew up in a small town in South Dakota on a farm. And from that experience of really working with your neighbors, helping improve the communities, and thinking on long-term solutions is what was cemented in my upbringing. It started when I was a page in the South Dakota legislature. It continued as I attended the University of Minnesota and became student body president. And once I settled here upon graduation in Minnetonka, I very quickly got involved in public service, first being a planning commissioner, then a chair, and then on the city council. And so why that's important, to me, I think the voters need a representative that has a strong command of the issues, both from a business and a public service standpoint. And the issues that I'm going to focus on in the legislature are very important to the district. They're around education, and John mentioned earlier on early childhood education. And not just that, but also how does education link to future jobs that this economy needs to make Minnesota as a strong and one of the top economies in the nation. Secondly, it's around transportation. I've been a strong advocate for a balanced transportation system of increased investment in roads like the third lane on 394, transit like the Southwest Light Rail. And I believe this experience, plus my business experience in leading a business unit at Carlson for the last 7 years, will be very valuable to the voters.
All right. Thank you. Now we will begin the question and answer period. And remember, those of you in the audience, raise your hand if you want to get a card to fill out a question. We have a league member out there who's collecting them. Here's our first question. We will begin with John Tollefson. Here's the question. How would you balance energy policy with environmental concerns and costs?
Well, I am a huge proponent of alternative energy sources for our whole energy policy for that very reason, because of its effect on the environment. We have seen over the last several decades huge amounts of carbon being emitted into our environment, and that has led to global climate change. And this isn't something that's really up for discussion, though certain sides try to discuss this. But it's something that's in front of us, it's facing us, and we're already very, very late to the game. And we need to act before it's too late. Now, there are so many examples of Minnesotans in their own experience with the environment, whether you like to camp or go hiking or experience the lake, just being outdoors. The environment is important to us here in Minnesota, and that's why I care about transportation. That's why I care about developing a whole system so we can reduce carbon emissions and use different energy sources from alternative sources like wind and solar, which are making advances. All of that ties together.
Thank you very much. And now Tony Wagner.
Thank you. As you do decision-making on energy policy, it's a combination of, I think, leveraging the targets that the state has already set and which we're making great progress to in both alternative energy and now solar energy. In addition, it's also important to think about how can we make the existing system more efficient. One of the things that I've done in partnership with city staff and the Minnetonka City Council is in 2009, we invested $500,000 through our own funds and grants to drive more energy efficiency in the city, and that paid off for taxpayers and reduced expenses long term. I think the payback was 5 to 7 years. Those are the type of things on top of energy targets like wind and solar. My wife and I purchase 600 kilowatts of wind every month as a way to make our own impact. Personal responsibility is part of that. So those would be some of my key targets, and I'll be a strong advocate for environmental stewardship in the legislature.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from John Applebaum.
You know, among the many reasons why you all and so many others in our community choose to live in District 44B is because of the environment and the clean air, the lakes, the parks, the trails, and it's a beautiful, very livable place to live. You know, as we progress into the 21st century, and not just Minnesota, but the United States has energy crises and really must be more cognizant of reducing our carbon footprint, we have to take the environment into consideration. And you know, this is a 1-minute answer, so I'd love to chat with you more about this, but in total, we must weigh the benefits of any energy or environmental project against the costs and make sure that overall we're netting a positive, because wind, solar, hydro, these are great programs, but we have to make sure it makes sense for all of us economically and as far as our livability.
Thank you very much. Okay, here's the next question. We'll be starting with Tony Wagner. And here's the question with a statement at the beginning. Infrastructure funding, and more specifically, transportation funding, is expected to be one of the top issues for the 2015 legislature. Please describe what you see as the transportation infrastructure needs for the residents of District 44B, and how would you address them as our representative?
Great. Thank you, Martha. Transportation, as I said, is one of the key areas of my policy agenda, and part of the reason it's one of the unfinished pieces of business that the last legislature hasn't addressed. Our transportation approach really has identified that we have the need for both light rail transit, express rapid bus service, and fixing congestion with our roads. One of the things that I advocated with my fellow city council members and Plymouth City Council and our local legislators is the third lane on 494. That type of targeted, thoughtful, common sense type solutions is what I would bring to the legislature, and also be a strong advocate for the Southwest Light Rail. I've represented the city of Minnetonka in guiding that development, specifically looking at what are the links between housing, jobs, and transportation that we need to combine, because it's not just transportation, it's that linking of those policies together.
All right. John Applebaum.
Okay, well, you know, I think it's important that we don't look at transit, especially mass transit, through a one-size-fits-all approach. You know, every community has different needs, whether it's, you know, keep in mind we're running for state legislature, so, you know, while the Southwest Light Rail is an exciting project that is hopefully going to bring thousands of new jobs and new people to the district and new homeowners, new families raised, we have to consider Minnesota as a whole here too. And so while I will be a strong advocate for the light rail in a way that will most cost effectively meet our needs and get a responsible, accessible program built, I think the top priority is making sure that of Minnesota's 13,137 bridges, make sure they're safe, because as of 2013, almost 1,100 of those were rated structurally deficient, and another 427 were rated functionally obsolete by the U.S. Federal Highway Administration. To me, we have to make sure our roads, bridges, and highways are of top quality before looking in another direction.
Thank you. John Tollefson.
I support a full and comprehensive transportation system. So that includes light rail, that includes roads, that includes full sidewalks and buses and car sharing options. All of this that brings a transportation system together that reduces our reliance on cars, helps us get around from home to work and back so we can spend more time with our families or to the grocery store or wherever it might be that we're trying to go, even within our community. This last winter, I had a meeting up in Plymouth, and I lived by Ridgedale in Minnetonka, and my partner Josh was up north, and my car broke down, and I had to take a bus downtown Minneapolis back to get a zip car to drive out to my meeting in Plymouth and then back down to work, because we have no transportation options that would allow us to do that. And whether it's that or going from the senior home near Carlson Parkway down to the grocery store, we need more options. And I want to build a full system.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to have another question here, and we will be starting with John Applebaum. Do you support Sunday liquor sales?
No. I don't support Sunday liquor sales. It's a controversial issue with many folks, but to me, number one, I'm the only labor-endorsed candidate in this race, and unions have been operating for a long time, earned their living, are provided benefits, and have raised their families with the current system as is. Most importantly, I'm a small business owner, and I understand that should Sunday sales occur, there are countless studies that will reveal that Sunday sales do not result in any extra revenue for these local small liquor stores, but instead add an extra day of expenses. So small businesses, small liquor stores, mom and pop, everyday workers, laborers, restaurants, no one wants this to happen, and I would not ever vote for it.
Thank you. All right, John Tollefson.
I firmly support Sunday liquor sales, and I think it's a little silly that we haven't gotten there sooner than we have now. This is not a labor issue. This is not a small business issue. This is a basic freedom issue. We're sitting here in a time where we're being held back from buying a good that's perfectly legal that we want on a day when we want it. And there are plenty of times where maybe it's October and you're going over to your friend's house to watch a football game, and I sometimes forget to bring something, and then what? So now I have to bring lemonade to my friend's football party because I can't stop at the liquor store and buy a 6-pack of beer for him. We're way past prohibition. It's time to get rid of it. We tried during the last legislative session to get this passed. I know a lot of people here in the room worked on that, and I think we'll get it passed next legislative session.
All right. Tony Wagner.
Thank you. I think this is a great testament to decision-making, right? As you look at this issue, I've thought about this because I grew up in South Dakota. You could buy, if you needed to go buy a case of beer, if you needed to go buy a bottle for hosting a party, you could do that. And so I actually went out and I chatted with liquor store owners. We have 10 in the city of Minnetonka, and I asked their opinion on this. And most of them supported it. And most of my constituents supported it, and so I see no reason why I would be beholden to a single group that doesn't want to operate on Sundays. And so for me, I also support Sunday liquor sales, and I think it's kind of a common sense solution.
All right, thank you. The next question is, do you support the right to vote for those living in the community on probation or parole from a felony conviction? And we will begin with Tony Wagner.
John Delphson. Oh, you can start with me. I didn't know if are you
We're
mixing
kind
it
of
up?
Yeah,
Oh, that's fine.
it's kind of rotating around a
No
little
problem.
bit here. Just following
So,
the grid.
So they're on probation, that's the question?
Yeah.
I would support the right to vote for those on probation, for misdemeanors. For felonies, I would have to consider that a little more closely.
Thank you. And then we go to John Applebaum.
Another divisive topic, both here and at the last debate. I was really hoping for some easier questions, but on this one, I'm a lawyer. I have represented folks of all walks of life, from regular corporate real estate people to entrepreneurs to criminals, and at the end of the day, the United States Constitution and our founding principles require that due process is granted to all Americans. And so my position would be they serve their time, they're on probation, and more studies and panels find that they're fully rehabilitated. It is within their right to vote. It's a fundamental right of Americans and Minnesotans, and I believe in granting second chances to those who have made mistakes and have paid their debt to society.
Thank you. John Tollefson.
Yes, I support the right to vote for people who have been convicted or are on probation. In any case like that, this is an issue again of constitutional rights, and I know that our system has in the past limited the rights of people who are convicted, but really what we're seeing today is just this big group of people who are essentially unable to participate in the community that they live in. It's disenfranchisement, and I know a number of people who have been convicted of crimes many years ago, who are doing well now. They're living in the community, they're responsible citizens, and they'll always have that on their record, but here they're not allowed to give their voice anymore. Your vote is your voice, if nothing else is, and we're really holding people back. And when a member of our community can't participate fully in our community, we have to fix that.
Thank you. The next question, we start with John Tollefson. What is your position regarding allowing polymet to mine in northern Minnesota?
I do not support allowing polymet to mine in northern Minnesota right now. The proposal that we've seen before us is irresponsible in many cases. They've written in a number of plans to clean up the water that would be polluted as part of the mining program, but any time that you talk about 500 years of water pollution and the cleanup needed for that, that's just, we're out of our minds if we're talking about a proposal like that. There's no way for us to be able to predict 500 years into the future. Now, I am a big fan of that part of the state, and my family and I go up there every year, often more than once, and actually my friend Amy's in the audience, and she has a cabin up there. And this is a part of the state that we really value. This is the clean water, the clean air, the nature, the forests around us. We can't sacrifice that for mining. That being said, the future of the mining range or the Iron Range is more than just mining, and I work on that with high-tech jobs up in that area.
Thank you. And then we go to Tony Wagner.
Thank you. This is a classic dilemma of economic development versus environmental stewardship. And, I think one of the values that we have in Minnetonka and Plymouth and Woodland is a strong focus on environmental stewardship. And I think we're also blessed in the state of Minnesota, right, that we have some of the strongest water quality and environmental process regulations in the nation. And so, what I would say is this process is ongoing. This process is continuing to play out. I want to see the continued research on the science and the input from residents. And as that comes out and that study is finished, then as in the legislature, I will weigh those decisions and I'll make my stand at that point. But I think it's a classic dilemma, right? Economic growth versus, at the end of the day, what our residents tend to value very highly, which is the environment.
Thank you. John Applebaum.
So this question was also asked at our last forum, and since then I did a lot of reflecting on the answer I gave, which will be similar to this one, although I hope this one isn't made into a soundbite for the Minnesota Jobs Coalition. But I spoke with party leadership about this, and I spoke with stakeholders about this up on the Iron Range. And in my conversations with them, I've learned that there are processes in place. There's environmental impact studies being conducted. There are feasibility and viability reports being performed by experts who full-time job, and they're getting rewarded handsomely to make sure that this project can go ahead without any environmental impacts. We also have to be careful and keep in mind of the wildlife population up there, and that's going to factor in too. So I believe it'll be irresponsible for me to answer this question without fully analyzing and reviewing those studies in order to make an informed decision for our district.
Thank you. Okay, we actually start the next question with you also. What are your priorities for education policy and funding? John Applebaum.
So I got a world-class education at Hopkins Public Schools, and that education allowed me to go on to a good university and inspired me to continue my studies and go on to the University of Minnesota Law School. And I believe every child in Minnesota, regardless of income of their families or race or zip code, deserves the same world-class education that I so fortunately received. As far as my goals and how I plan to achieve them, my plan is to, number one, provide an adequate and stable funding for our schools. I believe the governor did the right thing by paying our schools back the debt that was borrowed from them. We need to close the opportunity gap by investing in early childhood education. One of the chief proponents of that whole movement, Representative Ryan Winkler, has endorsed my candidacy, and I've met with him often on how we can increase scholarships and grants to those who cannot afford early childhood education. We also need to reduce class sizes and increase wraparound services so that the quality of the students' education while they're in school is absolutely world-class.
Thank you. John Tollefson.
Well, my priorities for education in the K-12 arena are on early childhood education. So right now we have K-12 with some early childhood funding, but I really want to expand that out to E-12 and make sure that we are funding early childhood education for every child in the state of Minnesota. We've seen studies that show that children who show up to kindergarten better prepared to succeed not only in kindergarten, but throughout their entire lives. My friend Amy is a kindergarten teacher, and she's here today. And when you look at the kids who show up, there's such a big difference between those who have been read to growing up, between those who have not had any reading or other preparation. And it's such a huge difference. You've maybe heard the study on 30 million words that kids hear who grow up in middle class and upper class versus those who grow up in poverty. So if we can invest our money in early childhood, we're going to see huge returns on that all throughout life.
All right. Let's go to Tony Wagner.
Thank you. I think if you look at education, it's the absolute lifeblood of why we're a great state and why we have so many great jobs and a strong Fortune 500 base in small business. And so if I look at where we see a challenge in the future, it's around three areas. One, we need to look and address, as John said, early childhood education. It has an absolute enormous return on investment, and not only is myself for that, but if you look at business leaders, right, in the Twin Cities, they're right behind it. The Itasca project, it's one of their top agenda items going forward, is how do we deliver on that. Secondly, that also helps us address the learning gap. The learning gap will be a significant drain on this state if we don't address it, and early childhood ed is a way to look at that long term. And lastly, I do think there is a strong link that needs to occur between the jobs of the future and what we are doing in our higher education system. Student debt continues to escalate, and we have to have a balanced approach, much like Senator Bonoff proposed in the paper a couple weeks ago, associated with linking jobs and employers to reduce debt.
Thank you. We actually begin with Tony Wagner on the next one. What is your position on tax credits for business development, such as the angel investor tax credit?
Well, economic development, I think, is critical for the state, and I fully support the angel tax credit. In addition to that, I also think that there's a great public-private partnership that can occur to help grow jobs in this district and in the community. Part of that is as we focus on key industries that we want to attract. If you look at the Western Metro, actually we have quite a few strong industries that have grown up over the last couple of years, including water filtration. We're one of the leaders in the world in water filtration. And as I look at what we've done in the city of Minnetonka, we've worked to bring, in partnership with companies like United Health Group, we brought the infrastructure in to bring 500 to 1,000 new jobs into the city that couldn't have occurred without partnering with government. That wasn't tax increases to do it. That was an innovative financing scheme that allowed a new bridge to be built with basically advanced to 20 years.
Thank you. John Applebaum.
I support the angel investor tax credit as well. And as a small business person from a family of small business owners and entrepreneurs, I know firsthand how tough it is to start a company, go out on your own, hire people, you balance a budget, meet goals, survive against tough competition. And so I think, we really have to create more high-paying jobs for Minnesotans, including those who are self-employed, because it just makes good economic sense. For every United Health Group, there are 94 John's Lawn Care or Jay the Water Guy or Kate's Nail Salon. And these small businesses are the key to the middle class and to growing our economy. We have to make sure that the small businesses and the self-employed are put on an equal playing field. So it's not just United Health Group that gets every single break, but it's regular, middle-class, hardworking folks that want to start a business here, grow their family, and really create something better for everybody.
Thank you. John Tollefson.
I'm a huge advocate of the angel investor tax credit, research and development tax credit, others that invest in Minnesota companies like this. In fact, I've testified several times before the state legislature on this very issue. This is something that works in Minnesota, and it's one of the great successes of our economic development policy. We've seen an increase now in the funding of angel investor tax credit. Through my work with Minnesota High Tech Association, we worked with the legislature to extend the tax credit 2 more years and increase funding for it. And one of the first bills that I would propose when I arrive at the legislature would be increasing the angel investor tax credit even further. I'd like to see it up around $50 million so that we're more competitive with other states in that area. This is great for our economy. These are high-tech jobs, and this is a public investment to help keep those companies who have the potential to really grow up and provide a lot of great high-paying jobs to do just that. It's all about jobs.
Thank you. The next question, we will be starting with John Tollefson. Should the welfare system be changed? If so, how?
Well, the welfare system needs to provide for all of those who are disadvantaged or who are experiencing poverty or homelessness. Unfortunately, right now, our welfare system doesn't capture everyone who is falling through the cracks. And so what we're seeing are increasing levels of homelessness among young people, even among teenagers. But lasting into people's 20s and 30s, and it's just we're not taking care of those who are struggling. And so yes, we need to make sure that our welfare system is taking care of food needs, of housing, and of, if we can, to invest in job skills development so that people can get themselves out of the cycle of poverty.
Thank you. Tony Wagner.
Thank you. I think if you look at the welfare system, I mean, one of the things that's been a challenge for the state, and I think the state legislature did a great job in and I think leadership role that they played in the last session was around how do we get one of those legs of the stool set, which is around housing, right? And so if you look at that, the legislature committed $100 million last year to help drive new affordable housing to help end chronic homelessness. That is step one. And as you look at that, having a strong foundation of housing is fundamental, but also job training and helping, I mean, the welfare system is there to have a step up to the next level. And that's what I firmly believe in. Is if you look at the system, we have to continue to look at accountabilities with that, but the fundamental basics are how do we have the system help people get a step up. And housing was a good start to that, and more to come.
Thank you. John Applebaum.
You know, one of the reasons I'm running for state representative and trying my very best and working so hard to serve my hometown district is because the government has the ability to improve people's lives. And that's what I'd like to do. The welfare system is a perfect example of that. And sure, the system isn't perfect. People fall through the cracks. People, aren't paid enough attention. And we can do a much better job. You know, affordable housing was mentioned earlier. That's what I did for a living before devoting 100% of my energy to running for this seat. The key is housing. We got to provide affordable places for people to live so they can start families and have some real comfort. That's why I do what I do. I work with low-income housing tax credits and Section 8 developments to make sure that people have reliable places to stay, and that in time the welfare system and other things will help them get back on their feet.
Thank you. All right, we'll begin this next question with John Applebaum. How do you plan on collaborating with members of the House of different parties to pass legislation?
Well, if there's anything I've learned on this campaign trail, and I've learned a lot, it's that if there's any profession that people dislike more than politicians, it's lawyers. And having been a lawyer and still practicing law, I have so much experience with working with people who share the fundamentally opposite viewpoints of me and my client, who I am representing and trying to zealously advocate for. And every single time, it could be aggravating, but we will be elected to serve this legislature and come to an agreement and get things done, just like as lawyers find or are hired to resolve issues for their clients. I can reach across the aisle. I've got friends within both parties. I've even have endorsements on other sides of the aisle, like Congressman Jim Ramstad. I'm a sensible person. I'm going to get things done, and I'm not going to let partisan issues prevent me from doing my job, which is representing you guys.
Thank you. John Tollefson.
It's so important to collaborate with members of the other party. Now, there are values that we must always stand up for, and that does not mean that we should ever compromise our values. In fact, I think we could do a better job about standing strong on the values that we believe so strongly in. But there are issues where we have common ground. And I've worked with members of both parties down at the legislature, and my experience with advocacy for the science and technology community. We've been down at the legislature working with members of both parties, sponsoring bills, getting co-sponsorships. That's one of the best ways to guarantee passage of a bill, is to have people from both caucuses supporting it. And that's one thing I really focus on in my work now. And we've succeeded with the tax credits that I mentioned before, with an internship program for science and technology, engineering, and math students at the college level to work in small Minnesota companies. That had huge bipartisan support down at the Capitol, and we got that passed by working together. And it's all about sharing those values.
Thank you. All right, and then we begin with Tony Wagner.
Great. I think a testament to this is really the bipartisan support that I already have. So I'm blessed to have the support of the entire Minnetonka City Council. I'm blessed to have support on incumbent Representative John Benson, and then business leaders such as Marilyn Carlson Nelson. But that means a little unless you can actually deliver with that. And I think one of the things that we've done as a city council is always worked forward. We've worked with our Democratic and our Democratic and Republican legislators to advance the causes that are important to this district. And one thing that I think is critical is how do you identify desired outcomes? There's always shared outcomes that either organization might have or either party. And as long as you focus on those, you can identify a way to get there. And one of the things I think that is important for us is to look at the population in this district. This district is roughly 20% ID'd as independents, and they're the people that I want to represent, and I'm happy and easily willing to stand up to any party dictate of how they want me to vote. So, and I'll do that in the legislature.
Thank you. This next question will be beginning with Tony Wagner. Many citizens are concerned about the role of campaign finance and disclosure. What is your position regarding financial transparency during elections?
Well, I think first the state of Minnesota is a leader in having a campaign finance system that allows individuals to want to participate in the system, right? Our contribution refund program that I'm participating in, I think is just a breath of fresh air for individuals to contribute. Secondly, I think there's never enough transparency, right? That's one of the things that, as working at Carlson, one of the things that we value is responsible business, right? We have a high level of standards around code of ethics, and I see that there is no reason that level of transparency should exist in campaigns. Whether it's third parties, whether it's large contributors, that information should be known on a regular basis so that the level of influence in politics can be disclosed.
Thank you. John Applebaum.
You know, I think money plays far too large a role in politics, which is unfortunate, and, you know, with Citizens United, just a terrible reality that doesn't seem to be getting any better. You know, politics should be about people. It should be about choices that voters make, and I would be the first person to advance a campaign finance reform bill to keep big money out of politics. Having said that, the reality of this election is it's going to be a very difficult election for Democrats. We've got Mark Dayton and Al Franken at the top of the ticket, who won by recounts last time. We've got the Republican Party of Minnesota, who, as of a newspaper article today, has outraised Democratic candidates by over $200,000, and one of their main goals is to to win back the House and to take this seat. So I'm doing every possible thing I can and raising as much as I can to make sure that we can keep it in good hands, because that's how the rules are laid out.
Thank you. John Tollefson.
Well, I support strict transparency in campaign finance laws so that we can see where money is coming from into every campaign. But not only that, but for donors for organizations that are participating in campaign ads. You know, we always see these ads up on the TV with like campaign for some vague thing, and we have no idea what they are actually working on, but they sound okay. And we see it with you know, these nasty attacks against candidates on television or whether by mail, and so what that allows is for special interests to get their hands into the political campaigns without identifying themselves. So we have no idea in many cases where this money is coming from or who's trying to influence it. And there are many candidates, particularly in the other party, who rely on those contributions to their candidacy, even if it's so-called soft money. We've got to clean that up, and we've got to make sure that we have enough light coming in so that we know who's trying to influence us.
Thank you. The next question, we will begin with John Tollefson. What opportunities do you envision for the MNsure program and communication strategy?
Well, MNsure is a very important program for our state, and I fully support MNsure and the job that it's doing. Both MNsure and the Affordable Care Act, which it's part of, have significantly increased the number of Minnesotans who have health insurance and who are receiving health care now. Now, this has affected my own family. My sister, when she graduated from college, didn't have a job that paid for health insurance. So she was allowed, because of Affordable Care Act and MNsure to stay on my parents' health plan until she was 26. And the day after she turned 26, or at the end of the month, she bought into the health exchange. I mean, that's not something that people could really do before. We have gotten rid of pre-existing conditions limitations on people. We have provided subsidies for people who can't quite afford health care. This all makes health care for our entire country cheaper and better for everyone. So MNsure is a great program, and people, we'll just have to stand up for it.
Thank you. Tony Wagner.
Thank you. I think MNsure had maybe a little bit of a stumble out of the gate technically, but if you look at the results are what speak. And then we're one of the lowest in the nation as far as people that are still uninsured. And I think what's important is, as I've talked with people, they see the fact that Minnesota's system has the kind of the sweet spot, right? The highest value, lowest cost kind of mix in the nation, and we're the leaders, right? And so I think that more needs to be done as far as telling that story. More also needs to be done to make sure that small businesses understand kind of the levers that can be pulled to help them. And that is natural in a process of rolling out a new system. And so I think increased communication and engagement with those individuals and businesses participating is critical. So hats off.
All right, thank you. John Applebaum.
So
John Applebaum.
we are fortunate to have one of the best healthcare systems in the country here in Minnesota. We have some of the best healthcare providers, one of the lowest uninsured rates, with approximately 9% of Minnesotans being uninsured, and one of the lowest costs in the country on our exchange. And we need to continue to refine and improve what works well here in Minnesota. Regarding the Affordable Care Act, it's the law of the land, so in Minnesota we must work to refine and improve upon it. We got to make sure that we have the right leadership in place and continue to do everything we can to support it and make sure that it provides the type of quality care and services that Minnesotans expect to receive and deserve to receive. The performance to date has been disappointing, but I'm confident that it will continue to improve. I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that it does, and I think we should encourage a strong enrollment for MNsure so that our premiums can go down.
Thank you so much. All right. We will begin the next question with John Applebaum. This, by the way, will be our last question tonight. What is your view on minimum wages, including for waiters and waitresses? I'm just reading as the question wrote it. So should I put it a little bit?
I'll answer it.
Okay. All right.
I support the minimum wage increase that occurred and would be a proponent of seeing it go higher. Regarding the tip credit, which I believe the second part of the question was referring to, we have to explore that because, as I mentioned before, I'm a small business owner. A lot of restaurants and folks, while overall are in favor of minimum wage, and economic data proves that every time we raise the minimum wage, Minnesota's economy as a whole will increase. We have to make sure that the system is fair, and so certain workers aren't making a disproportionate amount relative to other workers, which could, result in conflict in the workplace and may prevent some restaurants and other hospitality type workers or any of those on minimum wage that earn tips to be put in a tough spot. So that's what I think about it.
Thank you. John Tollefson.
Well, we can't compromise on minimum wage. We have to make sure that workers who are working, doing full-time work, who are still living in poverty, get out of poverty. Full-time work is supposed to be a path out of poverty, not one that keeps you in poverty. And that's what's happening right now in our economy. So if you look back to the 1970s or so and you look at inflation and how minimum wage has really lagged behind inflation, we have a lot of catching up to do. So I would actually support a higher minimum wage than we have now. But what we have to do is get there in a responsible way. A friend of mine owns part of a restaurant in Minnetonka and was, there's this whole issue with raising minimum wage drastically, that it can really affect a business's ability to survive. So we have to make sure that we're doing it gradually and responsibly, but we cannot back down from our goal of making sure that every worker who works full-time does not live in poverty doing so.
All right, thank you. Tony Wagner.
Great. I think, you know, the action of the legislature this year was welcomed, and it was long overdue. And as you think about the impact that that has on our economy, I think it is a net plus, but it also has to be responsible as we go forward associated with the increases. And I think the indexes give businesses what they crave, which is some certainty and predictability. I would, and I always fundamentally believe in decision-making, right, that you always have to take a look at the impacts of what's being implemented. And I think tweaking to the law is something that may need to be done, specifically as you think about the fact I grew up in a really small town, right, population 588. There was one restaurant there and probably 2 bars. That's how small towns typically work. And so as you think about that, right, the impact of restaurant workers, that could mean the difference between a small city having a restaurant or not. And so I think there could be the need to look at tweaking of the tip credit.
Thank you very much. We are now at the closing statements time. Again, they have 2 minutes. We will have the statements in opposite order of the opening, so we will begin with Tony Wagner.
Thank you. Again, it's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I think what's most important about why we're here is that this race is absolutely critical to this district and the Minnesota state in general. As this district goes, so may the entire Minnesota legislature. And so as I look at why I'm sitting here, I talked about my public service passion earlier and some of the results I've had. But in general, I think I have a differentiating characteristic around strong business experience by leading a $400 million business unit for Carlson Companies that has grown 30% year over year, while also serving on the city council and representing many of the residents of the district over the last 10 years. As a father of 3-year-old and a 6-month-old, and husband to a wife who's more than generous with her time of letting me door knock every weekend, I feel that I have a good pulse of what the district residents feel, right? I've lived here, I've raked my lawn, right? I've mowed my lawn, I've knocked on doors, and as a candidate, I understand the issues that are really present in this district. And as I walk and knock on doors, and my brother and I have knocked on probably 3,000 to date, I know that the residents' district crave leadership and crave to retain this seat. And I can tell you no one will work harder in balancing work, family, and knocking on doors to win this seat than I will. And I think what's important is a command of the issues and how we will really reach out to those independent voters that are going to be critical to this race in November. 20% of the voters in this district are independent. And I think it's a key constituency for the voters in the primary to make sure that we can reach out to, retain, and bring them home to vote DFL in November.
Thank you. John Tollefson.
Well, thank you very much to everyone who came tonight. It's fun to be able to meet with you all in person and talk about these issues and this important election that we have before us. This is all about our values, standing up for our values and actually getting something done to advance them. This is a very important election because we're talking about the state house being in the hands of the Democrats or the other party, and what we can accomplish when it's in the hands of the Democrats. We've seen what we can do over the last 2 years, and we can make a lot more progress. So I'm going to be out there, think ahead to October. I'm going to be out there door knocking, talking to independent voters, to people who should be on our side but are maybe not thinking about coming out this year. And I'm going to convey my passion and show why we should be standing together on our values. It's about education and transportation, high-tech jobs. It's about our economic development, the environment, healthcare. All of these issues are at stake. And it's all of you see the importance of it. You're all here in this room, but it's really about getting out there and spreading that message so that we can multiply times 100 or 1,000 the number of people in this room to get excited about what we can accomplish together. And so with my experience at the legislature, I've already gotten the job done on a number of issues for our community, and I'll continue to do that for you in the State House, whether it's on economic development, education, transportation. This is about our community and building the community we want. So let's get the job done together.
Thank you. John Applebaum.
I want to start by thanking the League of Women Voters and everyone who had a part in putting on this great event. It's an honor to talk to you, share my agenda, and see some friendly faces from the campaign trail. You know, I grew up here. I went to Hopkins Public Schools my whole life, lived here my entire life. My family's here, my friends are here, my grandparents are here. My life is here. This district and this race means absolutely everything to me. And I have been campaigning full-time since entering this race in December of 2013. Since the convention on March 15th, I have knocked on doors for 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've assembled a incredible, large, experienced, dedicated campaign team. And as we speak today, 8 people are out knocking on doors in our community. We have hit everyone's door so many times that I see a couple people in the room that I know have a few different pieces of my lid in their trash can. But the point is, I'm not going to let us lose this seat. I've been the only labor-endorsed candidate. I've been working the hardest. I'll continue to work the hardest. I've received the most legislative endorsements, and those are even folks who will be working with me and want to work with me in this legislative session and the next. I'm all in on this seat. I will not let us lose it. No one's more passionate. No one knows the district like I know it. No one is going to work harder. And again, I'm not going to let us lose it. Please vote for me August 12th. We're going to win it together. Thanks.
Well, this concludes the Minnesota House 44B primary candidate forum for DFL candidates. Thank you to our audience as well as the participants for being here at this recorded program. The replay times on 12 TV are posted in the lobby. Otherwise, go onto your computer tonight and go to www.twelve.tv and you can watch replays. Just stream it onto your computer. The candidates will be available in the lobby for a short time to answer further questions. There were several questions that I did not get to, and I know that there are many that you have in your mind that you'd like to talk to them about. Thanks to Cheryl Day, the Voter Service Chair, for organizing this event. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, Wayzata Plymouth, and to the Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Hopkins League members for helping. And thank you to the City of Plymouth for allowing us to use the City Council chambers. Thanks to Northwest Community Cable, 12 TV, for recording tonight's forum. And please visit the League of Women Voter website, www.lwvmn.org, for information on your candidates and ballot. And please remember to vote in the primaries on Tuesday, August 12th. Polls are open from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. Thank you. Let's give the candidates a big round of applause. I'm not supposed to talk about the membership thing, supposedly. Okay. Yeah.